Welcome in, guys, to Rover Sports, and here with Bruce the Sports Doc, and we are headed to day 2 of the NFL playoff season, and wanted to do a recap of yesterday's games. We had the Buffalo Bills get a big win. I mean, this was their first win in 25 years over the Indianapolis Colts. Now, they did struggle throughout the first half. You got to give credit to the Colts for how they came in there and played. I thought the Bills also got jobbed on a call late in the game, which would have ended the game. I thought that the guy fumbled the ball, but it was a very close call. But looking at the Bills going forward, Bruce, I mean, they barely survive a Colts team that had an opportunity to beat them as the 7th seed. Do you think that this Bills team going into the divisional round, do you think that they're not as powerful as you once thought at the end of the season because of yesterday?
No, I think I really respect the Indianapolis Colts. I respect Frank Reich in the coaching, Philip Rivers with a ton of experience. One thing I can tell you is it's refreshing. There were 600-700 fans strong at Rich Stadium, and they were heard. They were loud and proud. Not all 70,000, but to a man, the Bills said that the crowd noise propelled them. It gave them the energy to win. And Josh Allen was spectacular. The best play, emblematic, is when he broke containment, went left, squared up, and passed to Stephon Diggs, who is absolutely incredible. So Stephon Diggs is Devontae Smith. The analogy of pro in college, a guy who is not the biggest guy, but nonetheless, a guy who's been, as far as a receiver, the best I've seen. So between Josh Allen, a defense that, again, was spotty. At times, Philip Rivers, they just didn't blitz him enough. He's not that mobile. And Philip Rivers had his way. And it was a very exciting game. It went right down to the final whistle. And that game certainly was exciting. The Bills are at home again. What's happening next week? 6,700 fans. And the Bills, Why don't you just preview briefly, who are they facing next week?
Yeah, so I'm not really worried about yesterday. I think that the first one's always the toughest in any walk of life, in any situation. Getting over that initial hump is going to be very difficult. There were some nerves early on. I thought that Jonathan Taylor, you look at this Colts team, has really good personnel, but you're going to be nervous. You haven't won a game in 25 years. You had to break the seal, and that's what the Bills did. So psychologically, it was going to be psychologically, it could have gotten tight, and it did. And you got to give the Colts credit. But the Bills, their defense made some timely stops. Now, the Bills aren't immune, and I think that the toughest game for Buffalo, I think that tonight, if you're a Bills fan, you have to actually be the biggest Pittsburgh Steelers fan, because I think the Ravens at 1 o'clock, I love the Ravens in this game going against Tennessee. And again, it's Derrick Henry, and I've kind of doubted Tennessee all season as a division champ. But Tennessee's going to be playing against the Ravens. I believe that the Ravens, because the Bills give up, I think, maybe the third most yardage to tight ends. They had Jack Doyle of the Colts, who's very effective. I think Baltimore would be an awful matchup for Buffalo because they can run the ball. They could stall the clock out. You have J.K. Dobbins, Lamar Jackson. If it's Bills and Ravens, I think the Ravens are going to be a lot of trouble for Buffalo. They could be Buffalo's kryptonite if it's that matchup. However, if the Steelers beat a COVID Browns team, then the Steelers, you get another old aging quarterback and a team that you just housed 3 weeks ago in the Steelers, and then the Ravens would go to the Chiefs and those two would beat each other up. So that's kind of how I see it going. I think the Ravens are really scary. You want to avoid them if you can.
Yeah, and I think Ravens-Chiefs, as far as the NFL, they're probably hoping for that. That'll be a tremendous game, just with the up-and-coming Lamar against the almost unbeatable Mahomes. That would be a super game. Mm-hmm. So I do believe that if you have Pittsburgh, I think that would be a much more formidable opponent. for the Bills.
Yes.
And
yes. And then if they beat the Steelers, they pretty much meet expectation of playing Kansas City for the right to go, or playing Baltimore for the right to go.
I think that we cannot let a stream go within 24 hours of the performance by Washington football team quarterback Heineke. One of the bravest and rags to riches cases we've seen. A guy who literally was playing fantasy football, who was studying himself, not even teaching, not even being a coach, but actually taking classes at Old Dominion no less than 4 weeks ago, found himself in an actual NFL playoff game, playing against the greatest of all time, literally squaring up against Tom Brady, and what was a very gutty performance, and basically kept Washington in the game and battled terrific Tom right to the end. And I thought that was one of the most, as we say with Scott Van Pelt, the best thing you saw today. By far, Heineke coming in like George Plimpton, who's an amateur. Just to have an amateur quarterback come in. We remember Ben DiNucci. Remember the guy who was a wide receiver who came in for
Tyrell Hinton.
Yeah, Hinton. Those guys just couldn't even complete a pass. They went like 1 for 13 in the whole game. This guy passed for 280 yards, ran, and commanded the huddle. And I don't even know how much time he had to prepare, maybe 24, 48 hours. So, what's Heineke's first name?
Taylor,
great name. Taylor Heineke. The game will certainly go down. Now, again, they lost the game. It'll probably go down as a footnote. People will say, well, that's just another win for Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks. But anybody who saw that game and anybody who realized the magnitude of what Taylor accomplished was spectacular. Onward, what do you say about that?
Yeah, I think yesterday too, usually, like you said, when you have a backup quarterback, you're not going to get an entertaining battle. You're not going to get resistance. And last night, Taylor Heineke showed touch. His timing was actually very, very impressive, considering that he just arrived at the facility and he's just working with his teammates.
Talk a little louder. You're fighting the engine noise of a Porsche.
He was able
the ultimate muscle machine.
He was able to throw the ball with good touch, with good velocity over the top. And that's really what Taylor Heineke was able to do. I mean, he was able to really move the ball. He was accurate. His timing, that's how he was able to beat them. Anticipation, because he is limited as a passer at 6 feet tall. And yesterday's performance by Taylor Heineke was a life-changing performance, because now he's going to be in the NFL as a backup quarterback. He's probably going to get a nice bump in salary. And now he will have a job, I think, in the NFL as a quarterback, which is just incredible for him. And I think as long as Taylor Heineke just studies really well and can help out the starter, I think Taylor Heineke now can have an NFL career kind of like a Matt Flynn. And Matt Flynn had some of the great games for the Green Bay Packers when Aaron Rodgers came in relief. And last night was an entertaining game with Taylor Heineke. The Bucks themselves, they looked kind of like Buffalo a little bit, not as dominant. Now, I have more trust in the Bills than I do with the Tampa Bay Bucks, and the Bucks are going to have to go to New Orleans and probably play the New Orleans Saints. If the Saints win today, then the Bucks are going to have to play the New Orleans Saints, and the Saints have beat them twice, but what's the old saying? It's so hard to beat a team 3 times, but that's going to be, I think that'll be a more competitive with Drew Brees, and it really depends on what we see today against the Bears.
There's a question we have from Lisa from Reading, and we thank everybody. A little bit of a station ID. We are Rover Sports. We are Rover because we're oftentimes roving. Right now, we're roving in an SUV, headed out on a nice winter day here. Philadelphia suburbs, 41 degrees, light breeze, and what are we doing? We're just roving. You also see us, God willing, we'll be covering the Super Bowl. We'll be, I as a first responder, will be there. You, of course, working for the network, which we can't say now because it's not a network sponsored event.
It's not official, but
we'll keep. It's all right. I'm still teasing the audience, and thank you for not rating on my parade, because we are doing it. And again, I make miracles every day. So the fact is, we are Rover Sports. I'm Sports Doc. I'm here with Spencer G. Many of you know who we are. So the question is, what weapons did Taylor Heineke use? What did he do and get us into a little scheme that you saw? Let's go a little deeper. Go ahead.
Well, you had a lot of slants behind linebackers. You had a lot of crossing routes all within 10 yards because this guy cannot really push the ball past 25 yards. So he was really able to hit seams, and the Redskins, they have this guy Cam Sims, who's a 6'6" wide receiver out of Alabama, and he's kind of a guy that's been a second stringer, but he's a big target for a small quarterback. You want to have a 6'5" target so he's able to box out just like basketball, and that was important for Taylor Heineke because he's lobbing in those softballs. And unless you have a big guy to get in the way of the defender, you can pretty much shield and block out smaller corners when you have a physical, big time, like a guy with a lot of height and size like Cam Sims. So that's what was able to happen yesterday, is that you had the physicality of the Redskins wide receivers. Heineke was able to throw the ball on time. He really knew where to miss. I mean, that's the thing. When you play the position, you got to manage the game. The running game was really not a help. The running game really didn't help. The Bucs defense was stout in the middle of the defense.
Who's the running game?
It's Antonio Gibson. He's a dead rookie from the University of Memphis. He's pretty undersized. They don't have a good running game at all. Their guard play is terrible. So, I mean, their running game is incredibly average to poor. And the Bucs defense owned the running game yesterday. And that's what you're seeing in the NFL. The Bills don't run it. A lot of teams don't ever run the ball. But that really, before we, wrap up this stream, I got to talk about Russell Wilson. I mean, that was one.
We have a brief station break.
Well, yes.
So I just want to make a station break. This episode, in addition of Rover Sports, is brought to you by Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute, and that is a great sponsor located on the outskirts of Philadelphia. It's a doctor's office that uses both stem cells, body's own stem cells, platelet-rich plasma to basically treat low back, knee, hip, and elbow problems, shoulder problems. How many people out there have arthritis or sports injuries? A lot of the young people. You know you have a partial tear. You don't want to go to surgery. You don't want to be down for 6 months. You can come back and use your own cells. And if you're within the sound of our voice, we're going to give you the number. It's 610-521-6063. That's 610-521-6063. Ask for a consultation with Dr. Bruce. And most importantly, our newest sponsor. We want to thank Ashley Schaefer BMW as our newest sponsor. We want to thank you. And by the way, this weekend on Saturday, we have a very special guest, Mr. Kenny Powers.
All right. I love it. You go to Ashley Schaefer. They have fresh BMWs there. And
they also have girls, and they have guys who will actually do certain things with their I
don't want to mention that. I want to complete the stream.
But there are girls there who are very nice and very professional.
Very
guys
professional.
who also do
They're very good at their.
What I would call this. They will do what they call center manipulation.
Right.
And then remember, Ashley Schaefer BMW, and you will see Mr. Kenny Powers. Go ahead now.
I appreciate that.
Now I know that was a serious part of our show.
Some really good sponsorship.
Great sponsors.
That we want to,
Philadelphia PRP and Ashley Schaefer BMW, located right here in Nashville, Tennessee. Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
And so we wanted to, talk about Russell Wilson. And yesterday, I mean, Russell Wilson, he really struggled. And it's a certain thing where the media really bullied Seattle, and where Pete Carroll lost his way, because Pete Carroll likes running the ball. Everybody said let Russ cook, which means let Russ just throw the ball recklessly. But Russell Wilson is more of a guy that likes a running game. He does not want to be a guy that's just going to carry an offense on his back like a Josh Allen or Mahomes. And that's okay. You could still be some of the greatest quarterbacks ever. You look at Tom Brady, you look at Terry Bradshaw, John Elway. These are guys that had running games with Terrell Davis, and Peyton Manning also had some really good running games as well. So, Peyton Manning kind of led his offense, but Tom Brady has had running games, and Russell Wilson is a quarterback that he needs a running game to be successful. And Pete Carroll pretty much got bullied got bullied all season by this whole media arc, and Brian Schottenheimer himself, that they need to throw the ball all the time, and they lost their identity. And then they gave up 2 first-round picks to acquire Jamal Adams. They're also paying Russell Wilson $45 million. Pete Carroll's kind of an older coach. I really think it's a possibility that Pete Carroll, I think, one, he's going to be a tremendous college coach, because you look at Mac Brown, Pete Carroll's already an amazing college coach. I think Pete Carroll, within a year or two, he's going to want to go back to college, because eventually good things come to an end, and the Seattle team just seems to be stuck. I mean, I know that they went 12-4, but their roster building is absolutely awful, and I think they're overpaying Russell Wilson. They would have been better off with a new coach and a new quarterback.
Yeah, I want to make another comment. The Legion of Boom is no more. Bobby Wagner, who's the last vestige of the Legion of Boom, went out yesterday with an injury. Very courageously came back and tried to play, but really was ineffective. So this, which is the calling card of the Seattle team, the great defense, is no more. And that's the story of the game, in my opinion. Why they lost to an above-average LA Rams team yesterday. And I believe that the Seahawks look sluggish, and their reign of dominance has ended. On that note,
yes,
we will be rejoining you guys to do more pregame.
Absolutely.
Later, I want to thank everybody. There's a lot of people I see, a lot of 2/3
you
New
guys
Yorkers,
are great, and I really
and
appreciate
1/3
everybody.
Nashville. And we do have our people logging in from Anchorage, Alaska. There is an ice fishing tournament later today.
We have a huge.
We want to make sure we hype that up. We got to
have
hype
a
up.
huge audience out there in the Pacific Northwest.
In Norway, there is a curling match later in Norway. These are some of our most rabid NFL fans. So on that note, we want to thank you. We want to thank Philadelphia PRP. Most importantly, we want to thank Ashley Schaefer, BMW, Mr. Kenneth R. Powers.
Bruce, I want to thank you.
And we want to thank you for a very lively stream.
And of course, it's great to do the stream.
As we say, good day.